Welcome to the Draft Nut Podcast live on YouTube and Twitter. It's Jared Feinberg and Devin Jackson. I know we're in the middle of a football game right now, but it's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen you guys, and it's good to be back. Devin, how's it going, brother?
Pretty good. Just been a busy week, man. Started my new job this week, so that's kind of taken up a lot of my time. Haven't had a whole bunch of time to really scout or anything. Just kind of adjusting with that. But did catch the preseason game last night. It was my first one I actually got to watch. From start to finish, and got to follow along with it. So it's good to finally watch some football. Sit down and watch it, and get to take it all in and check out some of the rookies and some of the veterans compete. I will say though that the Eagles defense, the second and third units, they were pretty rough last night. It was a pretty rough performance from them in general.
Andy Singleton, though. You see him. Yeah. He's nice. For how his career has gone, like last year becoming a key player on that defense, and now coming into this year once again being another key player on that defense, that's really cool to see. I am definitely going to keep a close eye on Andy Singleton come throughout the season. I think that's one of the cooler things I'll take a look at with the Eagles, along with Devontae Smith, and see how Jalen Hurts does. Maybe we'll see the GOAT Joe Flacco at some point. Hey, man, it's going to come soon. It might happen.
Listen. It might happen, but if it does, I mean, the Eagles will be picking in the top 5 next year. Just to be frank. I mean, we saw Joe Flacco last year with the Jets. I mean, listen, he is past. He's definitely past the prime of, if even people consider him elite, he's way past that time. So he is a borderline serviceable quarterback at this point.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk about the guys on the other side of the ball that were going up against Andy Singleton in that second team defense. Specifically, the quarterbacks. I know a lot of people have given me a hard time about their current QB1. It's not Mack Jones. Just want to get that out of the way. Cam Newton. So last night, watching both Newton and Jones, I was really impressed with both quarterbacks. Newton really starting to open up the offense a little bit. You could see that there were some plays where he could have taken off and run if it was like a regular season game, but he ended up just dumping it off to James White, him gaining some yards after the catch, made some nice throws, driving balls downfield. He was throwing bullets last night, which I was really excited to see. I'm like, hey, that looks like the arm of old Cam Newton, where he is just throwing insane tight window throws with consistency, and he looked more comfortable. And look, I get it. It was the second team defense of the Patriots. I totally get it. None of this will matter if Newton struggles to start out the year and will continue and ends up continuing to struggle throughout the season. In which that case, Mack Jones ends up starting. But seeing what Newton did last night in the few series he played, I think should get New England fans excited, because if it was a regular season game, he was on a really good pace. If it was like a regular season game, playing against first team starters, all that. So I was really impressed with Cam. I was really impressed with Mack Jones. He was driving balls downfield. He made one really nice tight window throw between two defenders. I mean, it zapped right through them, and One of the receivers, I can't remember who made the catch on that throw. He ended up getting some yards after the catch, though, and I was like, wow, Jones. Now look, Jones did show some velocity with some of his throws at Alabama when going back and watching his tape. The problem is he doesn't have like elite arm talent. He has slightly above average arm talent, but it's not like he's not going to toss the ball 60 yards downfield, no problem. His balls tend to die on him. There were a couple balls that were low, but at the same time, I liked how much Jones had progressed from week 1 to week 2. He was more aggressive downfield. He was leading drives downfield well. It's exactly what I'd like to see from Jones moving forward. I just want to see progress. Okay, so I think what Patriots fans should be looking at for week 3 is more progress, more progression, more improvement from Jones. You know, he still has a ways to go. He's probably not going to start week 1. And it's probably been known for a while that Cam Newton is or has been slated the QB1 for week 1. The only way Jones is going to play this year is if Cam Newton, God forbid, ends up getting hurt or he's just flat out bad like he was at times last year. So that's how I see it right now. And look, I am hoping Mack Jones ends up succeeding in the NFL. You know, I am not against him as a player. It's just I have a problem with how the whole narrative of, oh, this is a really, really tight, close quarterback battle. Who's going to be the week 1 starter? I think Cam Newton proved a little bit last night that he has solidified that week 1 job, at least the week 1 job. Week 1 and probably the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. That's kind of where I want to see Newton. Okay, if you're consistent enough throughout those first few games of the season, then we'll, of course, reevaluate every few weeks or so, see how you are. And if he's just continuing to ball out, I don't think it's going to be really an issue with New England. And New England could end up being in a good place. So, Devin, I kind of want to know your thoughts on the Cam versus Mack battle. What you liked from both quarterbacks, and what you're expecting from both quarterbacks moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think it's as close of a battle as people are making it out to be. I think that Cam is clearly the starter, at least for right now.
Yeah.
And, I think they're going to get to a point, if he looks good in game 3, they're probably not even going to play him game 4 and just let Mack Jones kind of do his thing in the last preseason game. So I'm not really too worried about who's going to start or anything like that, because I think at that point, unless, Cam just completely just bombs the next couple games, I don't really foresee a situation where Cam Newton will start. And honestly, I won't see a situation where Cam Newton won't start to begin the season. And pretty much I'm at the point where, basically Mack Jones only plays this year if the Patriots are not to win a champion, or not a champion. They're not in contention to make the playoffs. Because right now their defense looks really, really good. Matthew Judon, I think, is going to be a terrific, kind of pick up and kind of play a really nice role for them. The secondary is solid. J.C. Jackson, obviously, a really good player. And Kyle Duggar is going to really, I think, continue to grow. And then, you had some nice play from Ronnie Perkins before he went down last night too as well. So, and Chase Winovich getting pressure. So they look really good on defense. So I think, honestly, the only thing that will hurt Cam is if he turns the ball over and if he's inefficient. And right now, I think it'll be very hard to do those two things because the running game already looks a little bit better than it did last year. Yeah. And then obviously they upgraded the offensive line too. So I know that we're basing kind of this on preseason, but at the same time, I think when you kind of take everything in consideration, they're not going to throw Mack Jones into the fire immediately because he looks good right now. He's making good decisions,
he does.
But it's a different level once you're playing a starting defense. And, once you get that 1 week on tape, I mean, teams are probably already starting to scout him now, to try and figure out when his time comes, because eventually his time will come. It may not be early on this year. It might not even be this year at all if the Patriots look really, really good. But his time is coming, and it's clearly he's going to be the New England starting quarterback at some point.
Yeah.
And you got to like the way he's looking right now. He's pretty good pocket presence. Very smart with the football, not putting football too much into harm's way. That's exactly what you want to see in a starting quarterback. And Cam has done the same thing. Make really good decisions. And you talked about check downs. Take the check down. You don't have to be superhero every play. You don't have to force the ball down the field if it's not there. So I think Cam is learning that he doesn't have to press every single time he gets the ball because you got playmakers. You can dump the ball off and get a 3-4 yard game, make it a more manageable. So our offense is more about making things manageable. It's not the 3rd and 10s, because you don't want that, for either quarterback. You want to get in 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 4s, get those crossing routes going. You do play action because it's in kind of short yardage as well, and play off of that. So you can roll them out even. So you have a lot of options. And I think both quarterbacks showed that, they can move the ball. Like I said, the Eagles defense was not great at all last night, but preseason is going to be valuable. Cam didn't have preseason last year. Nobody had preseason last year. So getting that timing down, getting used to receivers like Kendrick Bourne, who flashed, obviously. Jacoby Myers had a really good game too. Kind of getting that timing down is going to be important. So both quarterbacks are good. I think Cam Newton is definitely in the driver's seat, and it's really his job to lose at this point.
You can tell with the Patriots offense, like just how much stuff has changed offensively from last year to this year. Like you can tell things are in rhythm. You can tell things are really starting to click. I think having an off season, having a preseason kind of helps that out. And like a lot went wrong with New England last year. Newton didn't play well. The offense wasn't great at all. Receivers weren't getting separation. It felt like it was a win every time they got a first down. If they got a first down on a drive last year, it was a huge success. You're like, oh my gosh, they got a first down. Wow. Okay. Can we see if that can happen again? If it happened twice, it was a freaking miracle, So the difference from last year to this year, it's very encouraging to see, and just having the preseason to get a glimpse of what this Patriots offense could be going into the year and throughout this season. New England is definitely going to be a team that we will be keeping an eye on, and we will definitely be keeping an eye on not only Cam Newton but Mack Jones. If Cam Newton ends up stumbling and doesn't play good football, Mack Jones' time could come sooner than later. But if Cam Newton ends up doing well, has a big rebound year, we'll have to wait until 2022. Hell, honestly, if Newton has a big rebound year, Jones could be waiting longer. I mean, you just don't know. Or Newton ends up walking in free agency, goes to Washington, reunites with Ron Rivera. I mean, who knows? That was a total option. This offseason before Newton re-signed with New England. It was an option even last offseason when Newton was a free agent after getting cut by Carolina. So it's going to be really interesting to see what New England does this year, how they do offensively. Their defense is great. You forgot to mention Stephon Gilmore as a really good player on that defense, an elite corner. Come on, man. He's the best DB he's arguably the best defensive player on the team. Come on.
Well, did he play any snaps last night? Did I miss him last night or something? Yeah, that's why I wasn't trying to say he wasn't an elite player on the team. I was just talking about the guys that played in the played in the game last night. That's why I brought up like J.C. Jackson, Chase Winovich, guys like that. So.
I was just making sure. When I I was really hoping you weren't trying to underrate Gilmore for some reason. I was like, Devin, come on, man. Gilmore's one of the top corners in the league. What are you doing?
Yeah,
I mean,
I would never do that.
yeah, could never be us. Ever. Never, ever, ever. I want to talk about some more quarterbacks this evening, especially Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold. I want to start off with Josh Rosen and shout out to Ian Cummings. Hope you're doing well, my guy. Does great work over at Pro Football Network as a full-time NFL draft analyst. So make sure you guys check out his work. I want to talk about Josh Rosen because I think for me, he is definitely my biggest miss for a prospect as a draft analyst since I started doing it the year Rosen was drafted. I talked about it in my Football Thoughts article, my weekly edition of Football Thoughts, which returned this morning. Talked about him a little bit, like what exactly happened, like how did this happen? How did Rosen, from being a so-called savior, potentially being the next Rodgers or Brady, to in terms of star like talent and like just being able to be a savior of a franchise to possibly being out of the league here soon. You know, he went from being in the argument for QB1 like all throughout the draft process in 2018 to now being about to be potentially on his fifth team, if he even ends up on a fifth team in his fourth season in the NFL. I think if you asked me back in 2018 if you told me Rosen was going to be at this point in 2018, my first year evaluating draft prospects and grading them, I would have laughed in your face. I mean, I would never have believed you. I was like high on Rosen. He was tied for QB1 for me with Baker Mayfield. He had the same grade as Mayfield. And I was like, Rosen's going to be great. He's going to be fantastic for the Cardinals. Drafted 10th overall. He's going to be the savior of the team. He's going to lead them to a Super Bowl someday. And then the situation in Arizona happened. Him playing bad that year. And then you got Cliff Kingsbury coming in as new head coach, him wanting his own guy. So they kick Rosen out. Day 2 of the draft, after drafting Kyler Murray first overall, they kicked him out, sent him to Miami. People thought he was going to be the savior in Miami. Some people thought that. I even thought that because I was still a young draft analyst, like still learning and like trying and like still having biases towards prospects I really, really liked, and I really liked Rosen. And then, of course, he was bad in Miami, and then hearing the reports that he really struggled pre-snap with a lot of things, especially like not being able to ID the Mike linebacker, which is very concerning. Struggled in Miami, was bad in Miami, later got cut by Miami. Tampa Bay ended up picking him up last year in the offseason, adding him to the practice squad there. People thought, oh, he's going to end up taking over for Brady down the road. He's going to take Tampa Bay to another Super Bowl after Tom Brady. No way. He ends up, I think later that season, he ends up getting on to the San Francisco 49ers practice squad. People were like, oh, he might be the future there. You don't draft you don't add the future of your franchise on the damn practice squad, and then you go out and draft a quarterback number 3 overall. You know?
Yeah.
And there was some dude in my mentions the other day. He was like, "Well, Rosen was never really given an opportunity. He got 4 opportunities, 4, and he was bad. He was on the practice squad for 2 of them, and he didn't even make it past the first week of preseason before getting cut. Now he's a free agent, looking for his 5th team. It's over, guys. Josh Rosen's bad. He's bad. He's a bad quarterback. Forget it. I'm done with it. I admit that I had a big miss. I admit of being wrong about Rosen in terms of, hyping him up like, oh, he's going to do great wherever he goes. I forgot to bring into account the lack of the skill set he had was just not going to cut it in the NFL, in today's NFL. Looking back at it, the quarterbacks that have really had success from that draft are Mayfield, Allen, Jackson, guys that can really be creative inside and outside the pocket. Rosen just wasn't that. He really struggled pre and post snap, though he like make IDing defenses, IDing the mic, all that pre snap, post snap. It was not good. It was not good. And of course, he's had thoughts of like not having a lot of passion for the game. And it sucks for such a young, talented quarterback just kind of wasting all that away.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback position is hard enough to play at the NFL level.
Yeah.
And, if you don't have the mental fortitude to be able to handle all the pressure that comes with it, being able to really learn and teach yourself and take the coaching and just improve, you're not going to be in the starting lineup or be on, kind of in that discussion to be the quarterback for the team. And we talk about all the time, well, he didn't get a fair shake, or things didn't go as he really didn't get a chance. But I mean, listen, we don't get to see all the practices. We don't get to see the film sessions. We don't get to see what happens behind the scenes. And I think that's an underrated part of being a player in the NFL. Like like me and you could go to every practice and still not know every single thing that happens in practice or what happens behind the scenes.
Because we don't know the game plans, the schemes, the play calls. We don't know what different stuff they do pre-snap, post-snap, what they're supposed to do in those situations. We just don't know. All we can do is just see with our eyes and just see what the player does in front of us physically. We don't know what's going on here. We don't know what they're talking about really on the field unless we're standing right next to them, I mean, we as members of the media per se, we don't have all the access in the world, we don't have the inside information yet. One day we'll get there, Devin. One day.
But yeah, back to my point about Rosen. We don't see all those things. So if there are 4 NFL teams that have had him on the roster and have let him go, that should tell us something. We can't sit here and say, well, he should at least be a backup somewhere, or he should be this or that. Like, we don't know what he looks like when the cameras are off. We don't know what he looks like when we can't watch him every single day. So for me, it's hard to say that he's going to be starting ever again in this league, because it's very difficult in his position right now, because there's only going to be more quarterbacks that come into the NFL. At least half the teams know who their quarterback is going to be at least next year or in the next couple of years, so they have a plan. And unless he really takes that next step and just blow one away in the preseason, he just has not looked like a good quarterback. I mean, he played in the 49ers last game. He didn't look great then. So, he's with a very quarterback-friendly offense in Kyle Shanahan, and he's not able to.
In that.
Yeah, and he's struggling in that system. So we've seen him with the Cardinals. We've seen him with the Dolphins. We've seen him with the Bucs. Well, we really didn't see him with the Bucs. We have no clue what happened with the Bucs since he was on the practice squad, and now we've seen him with 49ers. So I think it's time to get away from that notion that he's going to be the guy that came out of college. Like, unless something drastic changes with this game, I don't expect him to be the guy that everyone thought he is. It just simply put. Now a team might pick him up and have him as their third string quarterback for now, and if he impresses, he can move up the ladder. But just from what we've seen, the sample size we've seen from him, with the Cardinals, with the Dolphins, and now in the preseason, I mean, you just can't convince me that he's the guy that was supposed to be the next one. He just hasn't put in. He just hasn't shown that. And we just have to simply accept that. I know there are times on draft Twitter where you don't want to give up on a guy, you don't want to give up on someone that you really liked, but you got to come to a point where it's just not what it's meant to be. It just is what it is at this point.
Yeah, and I still have hope for quite a few draft prospects from that draft class and from the 2019 draft class, even from the 2020 draft class. Is it fair to say that Rosen is the biggest bust in NFL draft history in the last 10 years, at least? Last 10 years.
I don't know. I don't know, man.
Trent, do you think, I definitely would say the last 20 years because, of course, I forgot totally about Jamarcus Russell. I mean, Russell had incredible.
If you're doing 20 years, you can put in Ryan Leaf in there too. Well, nah, that's a little bit longer. I would say Leaf and Jamarcus have a pretty comfortable lead. In terms of that, I have to go back and look at some of the draft classes because I think there were a few top 5, top 10 players that just never panned out.
Yeah.
But for me, so for me, I don't think he's one of the biggest draft busts. I think he just, to me, it's like, he just never really materialized to what he should have been or could have been at the very least. So I don't think he's too much of a bust. I mean, I think he has some buzz. You could say that. I mean, someone just commented, Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
That's a good one. But for Rosen, I will hold off a little bit because he did have a little bit of success. Like, he wasn't complete awful. Like, he has some success in some of the Cardinals games, but generally speaking, he just wasn't great. So I think probably Manziel would be higher on the list than Rosen for sure, because Manziel was like Heisman Trophy winner, went to Cleveland. People were expecting him to be the savior, so, and the Cardinals were just bad. The Browns were bad too, but I think for Manziel, he had even more hype somehow as a 22 overall pick. Greg Robinson. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm also thinking about
RG3 be a bust?
I don't think so. I think it's more injury play.
Yeah.
I think when you have a ton of injuries, I think that kind of separates it a little bit. I will say, you could say who's that? Could be on that list because he's never played NFL down.
Yeah.
The tackle out of Georgia. So there are some contenders. I think Rosen is definitely this. I don't think he's super high.
Trent Richardson's definitely a
yeah.
Well, would Isaiah Wilson really be considered like a bust? Because
he was a first round guy,
but was he? A lot of people didn't think he was a first round guy, except for people in the NFL. I think.
Yeah,
just to me,
just
like a bust.
Yeah, I think just me, bust is like you just like never showed any sign of being anywhere near where your talent level is, and. Rosen does check that box to some degree, but I don't think he was the biggest bust probably in the last 10 years. Like the people have been mentioning, definitely Manziel and Richardson are up there, as well as Greg Robinson.
Think Bortles? No, Bortles wouldn't be one. because he produced in the NFL. Bortles was able to produce a couple years in the NFL. I wouldn't say Bortles is bust. Geno Smith for sure. Geno's one. EJ Manuel is definitely one as well. Just off the top of my head, trying to think back from quite a few drafts. Feel like there was a player that Philly took in 2014, that just like did not pan out at all. I think it was right before the Manziel pick. Who was it? Let me look it up real quick. I feel like I know this. 2014 NFL draft.
Marcus Smith?
Yes.
I don't even know who that is.
I remember watching that draft and I was like, why would they take Marcus Smith there when you have – let me look at who was even available.
Oh, my God. They did not have a good draft that year.
Oh,
took Marcus Smith, Jordan Matthews, who's trying to play tight end now, Josh Huff, Jalen Watkins, Taylor Hart. Like I think I know Bo Allen, but that's about it. And Josh Huff, obviously. But that was a rough draft.
Marcus Smith was a first-round player. He wasn't a second-rounder.
No, the second rounder was Jordan Matthews.
Yeah. But Matthew was saying Smith was a second-rounder. Oh, I think he meant like as like a player, he was more of a second-round.
Oh, yeah. He was considered as a second-round type player. Got it.
But, Justin Gilbert's one. Justin Gilbert's definitely one.
I mean, you could pick anyone from those couple years of the Browns. I mean, they drafted pretty badly.
Yeah, my goodness, Kelvin Benjamin.
He was somewhat productive. I won't say he's a huge bust. He was somewhat productive.
Vernon Golston.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some bad ones. I mean, you look back over the years.
2014 was bad. Stanley Watkins, based on his hype.
Yeah, he's had an up and down career. He's had an up and down career. I wouldn't consider him a bust because he's put together
he's
some
a reliable
good seasons,
receiver.
You know?
He just hasn't been healthy.
He's just nowhere near his hype at all. You know, he should have never been considered as a wide receiver one. I think he's definitely more of a field stretcher. You know, can take the top off the defense, but I don't think he was ever going to be that guy that needed a volume of catches. I mean, even back when he was playing with DeAndre Hopkins, I thought Hopkins was way better than him. You know, watching Clemson back in the day. So, and I was even scouting at that point. Like I love watching Clemson and Watkins and
Receiver you,
Hopkins,
baby.
Watkins and Hopkins.
Receiver you. Let's go.
Yeah, that's that. The draft with Taj Boyd made me realize like you got to be a special type of quarterback because I really thought he was like good. Because I was like,
I thought he was getting drafted too. I was like, why didn't he get drafted in today's NFL though? I think he probably would have been drafted. Like in like if it was the draft this year, Boyd probably would have been drafted, probably high.
Maybe. He was a little bit before his time. I will say that. He was a little bit before his time. I don't know if he would have been super successful in the NFL, but I think he would have been a little bit highly regarded. You know, because I feel like you know, even like back then, like I don't even know, man. Like I look at some of the quarterback prospects that have happened, you know, and it's just like it's basically like you could throw the ball really far. You know, like Blake Bortles, like he could throw a ball really far. You know, so Ryan Mallett too was another guy. Like, like he had that one throw in pregame where he threw it like 90 yards and people were losing their mind, but he was never a good quarterback.
Here's what the NFL was like back in the day. You have a big arm. Yep. You're going to be
checks the box.
NFL. Okay, you're good. We're drafting you number one. Simple as that.
Honestly, they were going off of that. Josh Allen would have went number 1 overall in 2002. Like he would have been just fine, you know.
Yeah.
So
Looking at the 2013 draft, well, having 2013 was like my earliest memories of the NFL draft, like truly early memories. Luke Jokel, number 2, Deion Jordan, Orcavius Mingo, Jonathan Cooper, the great Tavon Austin, Steve Millen.
Now that is a horrible pick.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with somebody, I think last week or the week before, but listen, like I understand, like he has probably one of the greatest highlight tapes of all time.
Easily.
But taking him in the top 10 at his size, I don't care what the NFL was like back then. You just can't do that.
Even then, not just thinking about the now, but even back then, Hopkins probably would have been a better pick then. At what was he? Eighth overall. Hopkins probably would have been a better pick, and he ended up going to Houston, and the rest is history. So, Indy took Warner. I can't pronounce that first name. Born Warner. Jarvis Jones. Good Lord, man. 2013. Yeah. How the hell did you? Man, that's sad. That's really sad. There were some nice day 3 picks that year, but that's just sad. That's really sad. We need to move on from draft busts and bad draft classes and all that. So I want to talk about Sam Darnold because he is a player who's definitely in a prove it year type of situation, like the ultimate prove it year. I talked about it a little bit in my Football Thoughts article, which you can find on bluechipsky.com. If you haven't read it yet, go read it. Make sure you share, reply, all that. If anyone has seen Corey Keenan's charting of Sam Darnold from last year, oh man, I'm like that's not good. That's not good at all. And being 0 for 1 in deep ball throws last year in the first 8 weeks, I'm like, that doesn't help things at all. Like at all. So I talked about Darnold a little bit. I liked Darnold coming out of USC. I know some people were really low on him. Some people had him QB1. Some people thought he would be the number 1 pick up until draft day. Darnold, really talented, good physical traits, good arm. Was able to create in and out of the pocket. He wasn't like an elite mobile quarterback by any means, but he was able to be creative inside and outside the pocket. But the issue was the turnovers, lower body mechanics. Those were the main issues with Darnold coming into the 2018 draft, and that was still a concern, and it's still a concern into this year. In year 4 with the Carolina Panthers now. I don't think he was really put in a good place with the Jets, though, you would expect the number 3 pick to really just be like, okay, I am going to lead you guys to the playoffs by myself. I am a player that you can win with, win because of all that. Nope. Darnold, while he did flash the first year or 2, year and a half with the Jets, and having that connection with Robbie Anderson when both of them were with the Jets together, that was those were the good moments. Those are what we were the flashes we saw of Darnold is okay, this is what he can be, but why can't he consistently do this? Why can't he? Was it the coaching? Was it the receivers? Was it the offensive line? Was was it Adam Gase? You know, was it just purely Adam Gase just being a shitty head coach and just not, you know? And I kind of had a little rub on Adam Gase, you know, kind of like the only reason he has had any sort of head coaching gig is because like he coached Peyton Manning. Like that's the only reason he basically got a head coaching job, in my opinion. Like, you know, and with Darnold last year, of course, it was bad, and Corey Keenan's chart kind of definitely proved that. So Carolina ended up taking a chance on him. Of course, as we all know, ended up giving draft capital up for him. They really believed in his physical tools, his traits, his arm talent. They really liked the flashes, what he can do. They really think that they can fix them. They really think they can get rid of the ghosts inside of here and fix up those lower body mechanics, limit the turnovers. You know, they're really hoping that Darnold ends up improving and progressing this year. Will that happen? I need to see the first few weeks. I need to really judge it off the first few weeks. I need to see, okay, can he really do well in a new system with much better weapons, probably better coaching, but at the same time, not a great offensive line except for Taylor Moton. And I went to Panthers training camp 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago, last Monday. Not this past Monday, but the Monday before. Went to Spartanburg to watch Panthers training camp. Darnold looked good. And he has done well in Panthers training camp. I will say that. He has improved in camp. He has been he hasn't had really any bad, he's had a couple bad throws here and there. But he has really been smarter with the football in practice, really making good decisions according to Coach Rule, Brady, and everyone else. Media members who are there have been reporting the same thing. He was really nice throughout camp, and I'm looking forward to see how he does this Saturday. And I tweeted out after practice last Monday that, look, Darnold looks good now. He had a good practice. And I can say the same thing right now with training camp over. Darnold has looked impressive throughout camp. But none of this will matter if he ends up looking like the same player we saw last year. This year, you know? None of this will matter. And you and I both agree with that. Everyone else agrees with that, you know? None of this will matter if Darnold doesn't show any sort of improvement. But for the sake of the Panthers, you know, I think a lot of fans with Carolina, a lot of the coaching staff, including Matt Rule, Scott Bitter, I think they're really hoping that Darnold can actually now in year 4 realize his potential as a quarterback. Will that happen? I don't know. I'm a little hesitant at look, I've been optimistic about Darnold from the start. I think he deserves an opportunity to prove himself that he can do better in a better situation here in Carolina. But I want to see how he is in here, and I want to see how he is in the lower half in terms of his lower body mechanics, because he's got like we both know, he's got the talent. He does, and he's shown the flashes. But none of that will matter if he still has problems here mentally, seeing ghosts, making bad decisions consistently, and not being set in the lower half, not having a consistent base, not showing proper footwork. None of this will matter. And Carolina will be right back where they were last year. Top 10 pick. Maybe even a top 5 pick if they're that bad. If Darnold is that bad and it costs them that many games. And it's probably at some point, and if Darnold is that bad, we're going to see PJ Walker at some point during the season. So this is a big year for Darnold. This is the ultimate proof year. Darnold, you have to prove to everyone in the NFL, to the Carolina Panthers, to Coach Rule, to Coach Brady, to the receivers, the tight ends, McCaffrey. You have to prove to a lot of people that you can be a good quarterback in this league. But like I said, none of this will matter if he isn't good this year and the Panthers are stuck. And once that happens, Matt Rule's in the hot seat. As someone who has supported Matt Rule, who likes Matt Rule a lot, I'm being fair here. Matt Rule will be on the hot seat if Sam Darnold ends up not working out. So, for the sake of Matt Rule, you better work out. Or 2023 could be his last year in the NFL if he's not able to get this thing figured out at quarterback. It's if the Panthers somehow don't improve from a year ago, and it's mainly because of Sam Darnold, you're going to be in a lot of heat. You're going to have a lot of heat coming your way.
Yeah, it's a big year for sure.
I think we just lost Devin. Did we?
We got frozen there for a second. But yeah, it's going to be a big year for. What'd you say? Kieran?
I am going to remove you real quick and see if it works. Sorry about this, folks. That Devin's having a little bit of issues with connection. I'm hoping it's going to get better. But I want to add on a little bit before if Devin's good. Devin, are you good on your end? Thumbs up. You good? You good? You good now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
Could be
yeah.
Like I got like a bunch of tabs open, so it could be my end. So
okay.
Maybe if I just go in a separate window, that might have helped. I'm not sure. All right. As you were saying, Devin.
Yeah, I was just saying, yes, it's a big year for him. I think the struggles have been well documented for Sam Darnold. To me, I'm not really too much worried about him. I'm more worried about the offensive line. I think that's going to be the biggest thing that could hold back this offense because, they're trying to figure out their tackle situation. And, if you don't have that figured out by the time week 1 rolls around, that's a big issue. Like you got to have someone to protect the blind side of your quarterback. So I think that battle to me in trying to figure that out, I think that's going to only help him. And if it doesn't get figured out, then, you could see more struggles and more questions about whether or not he can be a starting quarterback in this league or not. You got to have the offensive line to back him up too. Like you can get the ball out quick, you can make quick decisions, but eventually you're going to need some time to throw the football. So I think that is going to kind of be a contributing factor to him in whether or not they're successful on offense this season. Because like I said, we saw PJ Walker obviously and do his thing, but now we're going to see some action from him. And really, I think we're going to be able to see whether or not he's kind of taking that next step and really improve some of his deficiencies in this game.
And he's going to be playing against a first-team Ravens defense, I assume. So you want to talk about first test with a new team with a lot better weapons coming into year 4 in a better situation potentially. Like the opportunities in front of you to show Panther fans, hey, this could be a glimpse of what you see this upcoming season. If we're seeing Sam Darnold an progressed Sam Darnold, it could give Panther fans a lot of hope But of course, none of this will matter in the regular season. It's the preseason. We're just getting glimpses of these players. But once things start to count, week 1, you're going up against first-team defenses. You're going up against some of the NFL's best. You've got to really lock it in and start balling out. And I really do hope Sam Darnold ends up being good this year. I really do hope that he ends up being like one of the steals of the offseason, for the sake of the Panthers and for his sake as well. Because Darnold, I think we all know, like he's talented. We all know Darnold is talented, but the 3 things that he needs to improve on if he's gonna really improve in the NFL: turnovers need to go down a lot. Decision making needs to be a lot better, and the lower body mechanics need to be better. He gets those 3 things right, or at least limited or down, he's in a good spot. And Matthew brought up a good point here. Even Patrick Mahomes didn't look good with bad tackle play. We saw this in the Super Bowl. If you don't have good tackle play, your offense is going to struggle. If you don't have good offensive line play in general, your offense is going to struggle. I'm hoping that with how many skill position players Carolina has in terms of talent, with McCaffrey, Moore, Anderson, Marshall, David Moore, Smith, Dan Arnold, Tommy Tremble, Ian Thomas, you got mouths to feed. You got dudes you can throw to. But will all of those weapons be enough to overcome bad offensive line play? The thing that Panther fans need to hope for this season, Sam Darnold improves and shows good consistency, and the offensive line stays somewhat serviceable, average throughout the season. Taylor Moton is the best offensive lineman on that team, period. It is not even a question. And they've been moving him at right tackle, left tackle, playing him on both sides. They're sticking with Cam Irving at left tackle. They say he's been having a good camp. I'm like, I'll see tomorrow night, Saturday night. I'll see week 1 against the Jets. We'll see. If Moton's starting at left tackle at some point, Brady Christensen season, baby. Let's go. Right tackle. Let's go. There are some young talent on Carolina's roster on the offensive line that I'm excited about. And I really hope they end up progressing and becoming long-term starters along the offensive line, such as Brady Christensen. But as of right now, Darnold needs improvement. He needs to improve. This is the ultimate prove it year for Darnold. And the Panthers' offensive line has to be somewhat serviceable and consistent enough for the offense to succeed somewhere close to a high level this year. They have the potential to be a high-level offense, but it's really, again, going to come down to Darnold and the offensive line. Simple as that. You good? Guys, it's been fun being back with you guys, talking football, talking draft busts, talking previous drafts, talking about Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Cam Newton, Mack Jones, the Patriots. It was fun talking about that, talking about those things with you guys. We'll be back next week, and hopefully we'll have a recording next week on iTunes and Spotify next week. Devin and I will figure out sort of what we're going to do on that front, but we will be back next week with a live stream for sure. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.